Legacy League, it was a bit of a survive and advance kind of a week. A lot of scores, but a lot of injuries too. So it took people out, or maybe you just went up against someone who went off. Although I have to say, normally there's some performances that happen that when they do, that person wins. We did have a situation where someone finally went off and they didn't actually win the game. We'll get to that one though. We'll get to all of it. NFL stuff, our league, lots to talk about. Always feels weird to think of, but after 4 weeks, we're over a quarter of way into the regular season of fantasy. So it is establishing what's the new normal. And so as I was up at a crazy hour and was actually watching some of the games at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, etc., just because I was awake, I was noting things down like what's more normal this year and maybe what's a little bit outside of the normal. So just a few things quickly highlighting. Apparently, an American, Skylar Thompson, got jumped in Dublin by some Europeans, some Irish people. Meanwhile, in the U.S., a bunch of the U.S. fans were just going horrible versions of themselves on the Ryder Cup Europeans. I guess Euro-American relations, that's our new normal. Kickers and what they do to the balls now. I don't know how many people know about this, and this is not a setup for a really crude joke. They actually get more control over what they do to the footballs, and all of a sudden, a 60-yard field goal is actually more than well in play, and not just by one or two guys, by a bunch. So I guess just tons and tons of field goals for no particular reason, and teams settling for those field goals. Very much the new normal. Speaking of field goals, we had talked about blocked kicks seeming really, really normal. I was watching the Chicago game, and I know we have some Chicago fans watching, so I'm not going to crap on it. Caleb did not look good if you actually watched the game, but mostly because him getting his passes swatted down by Max Crosby was a massive new normal, to the point that there was a part in the game I wondered if he was going to get another pass off. Crosby just seemed to have his number. Of course, it didn't really matter, and if you looked at the fantasy results, he did all right, and he led the drive at the end, so I guess playing pretty bad for about 3 quarters isn't that bad if you win. Also pretty normal. Speaking of bad teams doing good things, the Giants not being able to have nice toys, that has always been normal. It stinks. They have a running back and a quarterback coming out, having awesome games, rookies, dart and scataboo, and then they lose neighbors. So even though they get the win, they still get the loss. Giants fans, I think, would agree that has pretty much been normal for a while now. Our fumbly Ravens, if you watch the Ravens play, the weirdest team to watch. Their first drive looked absolutely dominant, like the first 3 quarters in Buffalo. After that, I don't even know. Fumble, hamstring tightness suddenly, and they didn't even talk about it. Lamar's just out. That's not normal, but I guess that's normal for this year. Do you start Henry still? You kind of have to. There's a couple guys like that. Speaking of someone that you start and then you immediately regret starting, the Eagles are just not fun to watch this year. That's our new normal. They play the game like Army versus Navy in 1923. It is so dull, and they've forgotten that you actually are allowed to throw it more than 5 yards forward. I think A.J. Brown owners would have loved that one if they can figure that out pretty quickly. Actually, kind of leading off our fumbles and whatnot, I'd be dismissed to say it's not the new normal, but unfortunately, Deshaun Jackson gets references every time someone does something a little bit celebratory at the end and loses it. If you saw Indianapolis and you know Mitchell and what I'm talking about, I will argue, though, he was not celebrating. I don't really understand. He was just trying to grab the ball and stick it out like pretty much everybody else does. Then he kind of grabbed it and fumbled it. It's like if you threw someone their cell phone and they didn't really know how to catch it and it squeezes out. And then once he did it, you can tell he knew he was screwed. And sure enough, replay suggests that was just an 80-yard touchback. So sorry about that one, buddy. Speaking of things that aren't normal, I only have a couple, and you can spot them out pretty quickly. I don't know how many people like watching Brady's commentary. I don't, but I tend to hear about it afterwards. Him making the comment, and I think this is pretty much a quote, that Bucky Irvin could run with Doritos on his heels and not break them. I mean, that's a weird way to say that someone runs on their toes, but also TB12, you don't know what Doritos look or taste like. You got to be kidding me. He probably hasn't had anything like that since he got drunk after, even then it's booze. It wasn't even Doritos. I would actually say 5-10 years since he's had a Dorito, maybe a protein chip. I think that's what he really was going for. It's just they don't have the same shape. Or let's be honest, he's paying someone to write his jokes now because he knows no one thinks he's funny. Last kind of thing that I thought was not normal, but we're getting used to. There was a massive announcement. It was supposed to be normally the halftime announcement, and I know a lot of people care more about this in some of these leagues than football themselves. Normally it's like the week 1, so you knew something was up. You knew there was negotiations. Rumor has it that maybe it was something to do with Taylor wanting actual ownership rights on the performance, which would make sense. I think it would have been like the 150th performance. All this stuff was lined up. Anyway, it's Bad Bunny, and apparently we had to hear about sourdough and more people getting into it over the last month and a half after the reference on the podcast. All for naught, I suppose. Anywho, now that's only 4 weeks down. Our seasons are starting to kind of form in. Now people are starting to get their tiers. But before we really get ahead of ourselves and start looking at week 5, let's just see exactly how week 4 went down in our leagues. I just narrowly got the top score of the week, and I needed almost every single point against Krupa Troopas. For you there, Connor, you did have the wrong running back go off. It's been Taylor the whole time. Now, finally, your rookie stepped up. He was the wide receiver 3, and I did benefit from Taylor probably having his least productive week of the year so far. Allen was a mere mortal, but still, I mean, out of the top 5, but still top 10. Can't really sneeze on that. So, and you did have the defense 4. So, obviously, you would have beaten a lot of teams. I just wasn't one of them. And I mean, you even played a guy who spotted you points with his defense. And you would think then, if I was saying that, if I had negative points and I had the top score, that I had a ton in the top 5. I didn't. Love was the quarterback 5. I did have the tight end 2. And that's about it. But if you look at my receivers, pretty happy with their production. Can't sneeze about that. I got 2 of them just outside the top 5. So add it all together, the greatest waiver wire pickup of all time in Benson, who's already out. So lots I'm going to have to figure out injury-wise. But for this week, at least I stayed at 3 wins, second in the league. Can't sneeze on that. Connor, you're going to beat most teams with 164, and we all know you're going to regroup here. So I'm not too scared yet. My top score wasn't by a whole lot. Tim, you were right behind, and you had a few more people that kind of rang the bell, although one of them was on the bench for you. You did have DK was the wide receiver 5, and your big guy there, Stafford, was the QB1, which was monstrous for you. I mentioned you have someone ringing the bell. That's on your bench. Again, I get it. You got a good tight end, but Dallas Goedert was the tight end 1, and he's been top 5 a couple times now, so pay attention to that. Unfortunately for you, Marco, you did ruin the one performance so far that justified taking him in the first round. Ashton Jeanty went off. That's what happens when your quarterback starts throwing to the wrong team, is your coach is going to make you run a ton. You did put up a bit of a fight, just not as consistent. You needed 1 or 2 more guys, especially I'm looking at your wide receiver crew, to step up. Didn't really happen for you. I thought Waddle might have with the injury that popped up, but just didn't work out. So you're not quite out of it yet. You're both 1-3. Tim, you needed that win to get on the winning board, and the high score is certainly going to help you out. Both of you are not in the must win yet, but you're in the must win soon, probably pile. In the battle of the could-be father and sons, it came down to, let's carry the point. Yep, exactly 2 points. You must have planned that. That's pretty crazy. And you're finished 4-5 and 2-2. Crazy. Rennie, great win, 2 points, 100 points, doesn't matter. Win's a win. Mahomes is having a decent little year on the sly here. He was the quarterback 4. If you take a look, too, you did have a few other people going off. I mean, Quentin Johnston's been a good pickup. Josh Jacobs was the running back 2. You notice I'm avoiding talking about your wide receivers just because that was gross. I hope if you watched it, you didn't watch it again. Your leg's not supposed to bend like that. And Hill, my goodness. So sorry about that, buddy. Luckily for you, you do have some wide receiver depth. I did mention Johnson before, and it's not like your defense really helped you out on this one. Taking a look at your bench, you also have some other people who can come in and give support. So here's hoping, buddy, that you've already made plans for the future. Kent, on your side, you did have the tight end 4 on your bench here in Waller. What a great debut for the Dolphins. You did have Fields, who was the quarterback 3. So, hey, got to be feeling pretty good about that. And Pickens, once again, with CD out, man, he is doing all kinds of good stuff. He was the wide receiver 2 and would be wide receiver 1 on most weeks, but you saw what Puka Nacua did. You're not going to really compete with that one. So you came close, obviously well over predicted. Can't be too mad. You're both 4-5, which means right now you're both in the playoffs, but matchup of the week, gentlemen. Congratulations. Gene kept the machine going, 3-1, 3rd overall. Always scared of him when he's trying to make a run. Think about this. He got the win, and look at his wide receivers. Look at his A.J. Brown. Someone's got to. And Jacoby's been off for the most part, but not last week. But Dobbs sure as crap did. Dobbs was the wide receiver 3. Got to be feeling pumped about that. Dax went off. He was the QB 2. You had the tight end 5, and you had the defense 3. That makes up for your 2 low balls here, and why you put it on only just over 6 points over Double J here. But again, I mentioned it before, a win's a win. Jason, Josh, 1-3, but you're scoring pretty high, which is why of the 1-3s, you're still up there. So obviously I wouldn't be too concerned. Drake London put up a great performance for you. He was our wide receiver 4. Bijan's been pretty steady. He was the running back 5, and running back 5 at 31 points. A lot of points scored in the running back position last week. Just fell a little bit short. You did have some love on the bench. I love throwing a dart at the board there. Didn't put him in the lineup, and it probably was the right call since your quarterbacks did fine, except for Indiana Jones, but I don't know if I would have made that call. That would have been pretty gutsy on his first game. So you got options moving into next week, which is the best thing you can ask for. And Gene, you keep rolling. Kept? I don't know. Kept? Good job, Gene. Speaking of kept and kept rolling, Dibbler, number 1, still undefeated. This week, kind of squeaking by a little bit. Now you played Timmy, who kind of, the football looks like a bomb. That was kind of the team. Not all his fault. Lamar's injury was a weird one. Normally when you're like an MVP candidate and you're out, they make a huge deal of it. But all of a sudden they just showed him on the bench and they're like, Lamar's not playing. Weird. Don't really know what's happening there. Hopefully we get some other reports. And you had just kind of some poor situations. Tight end, obviously, and Monty. Monty went off last week. They played the Browns. They're crushing the Browns, and yet they used the other guy. I don't know. Speaking of which, your defense did ring the bell for you. Only one's defense won, but like I said, against the Browns, that shouldn't count. It did. You got a lot of points, so well done. Your bench, you do have some options. I'm leaving it to you. You got some injury concerns too, but join the club. I think we all do. You are still in the top 6, meaning you're still in the playoffs, so could be worse. Dibbler, the party just keeps on rolling, and your party really does have a commander in Puka Nacua. Wide receiver 1 on the week. Wide receiver 1, I'm pretty sure, on the year. Bucky didn't crack the top 5. He did crack his foot, apparently, so it looks like you got some running back depth issues you might have to tend to. But aside from that, a win is a win is a win. Still undefeated. Still the only one undefeated, so congratulations, buddy. It really does come down to points scored in so many ways. We just have this huge log jam in 2 kind of tie sets, so no point really going too much here. To be honest with you, there's no point really going too much here either, because in week 5, we got bye weeks I'm about to talk about in the closeout here. We got injuries happen all over the board. Some people were super active on the waiver wire. Some people were super not, because we do have deep benches, so I wouldn't trust these numbers until about Sunday, an hour and a half before game time. As we jump into week 5, the innocence ends. Yes, we're still in the Euro Tour, so pay attention, people, because the games start a little bit earlier again, or at least one of them does. Bayapalooza is upon us. Now, this isn't the full-out Bayapalooza week. If you look ahead, there's some that are going to be worse than others. This one's actually, though, kind of a dinger for the first one. We got Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh, so not the worst, but definitely going to impact a lot of teams and a lot of players out there. Like I said, I know the waiver wire was a bit popping between that and injury, so people are aware. I know a lot of adjustments are going to be happening. Just bear in mind, because there's also a ton, and I know for a lot of us that are not in North America, this is a problem. A lot of questionables. God, I hate questionables. So take a look, read some reports, especially as it comes into the weekend. I don't wish injuries on anybody, so I will just say a sincere best of luck in week 5.